The Ink and Paint Club podcast is intended for mature audiences. I know we're usually talking about kids' cartoons and stuff, but there's going to be naughty language. Anyway, listener discretion is advised.
You're listening to the Ink and Paint Club podcast, your weekly home for animation reviews and discussions.
Alrighty, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Ink and Paint Club podcast. I'm your host, JD, and unfortunately, Kyle had some business to take care of, so he's not going to be joining us this week. I know you're all sad and depressed about that. But we've got a new face with us this week, so everybody welcome Matt to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course, man. Yeah, Matt is here, and I kind of noticed a couple weeks ago that we've never talked about BoJack Horseman on this channel before, and season 5 just dropped a few days ago, so I figured, what the hell, now's good a time as any to do it. And from what I gather, Matt, you were also a fan of the Horseman.
I'm a big fan of the Sad Horse.
The Sad Horse Show.
Yeah, the Sad Horse Show. It's the best Sad Horse show on television.
It really, yeah. Of all the sad horse shows that there are. So if you're not familiar with BoJack, it's a Netflix show. Is in this very bizarre universe where they're just humans and animal-human hybrids just coexist, and no one thinks twice about it. It's just how the way things are, and revolves around this the titular BoJack, and he is an aged 90s sitcom star and continuing to try to remain relevant in today's today's modern age of fast-paced media and all that good stuff. And like I said, season 5 just dropped a few days ago, and I'm not all the way through it. Matt, you said you finished season 5.
Yeah, I managed to binge that all in one night.
Yeah. I'm like halfway through, so I need to finish that up. But yeah, BoJack is a very interesting show. Matt, what are your thoughts on the show, just kind of as a whole?
As a whole, I think it's like one of the most accurate and honest depictions of like depression of anything ever. Like don't know if I have depression and I make a whole webcomic about it, and like BoJack makes me feel like a chump sometimes. Like these guys know what they're fucking doing.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. I mean, I also kind of suffer from depression and anxiety and stuff, and a lot of what they show BoJack going through, and just kind of the triggers that he has and all that stuff. Like, yeah, I totally can relate with that.
Definitely. There's an episode. Is it season 4? The episode where the I'm a piece of shit episode, where BoJack wakes up thinking that every morning, and that one's just like,
yeah,
that crushing.
Yeah, that one hits you hard, and yeah, I've had a few days like that. So. But yeah, I mean, the show it's very. I guess the word I would associate with this show is just honest. It does not shy away from every character's shitty personality, every one of their awful quirks, I guess. And it's
perfect. That's sort of what I like.
Yeah, it shows everyone as a very human character, which is kind of funny because half of the cast is not human.
Oh yeah.
And that's actually one of the funniest things about this show, is that the fact that every, like, half of the world is just weird animal human hybrids. Like, everyone has like a human body but like an animal head, and it's just funny seeing the ways that they interpret that. and like see how some of them need to operate in the world. Like you'll see people that are like fish hybrids, and like they have to drive a car filled with water because they're fish.
Oh yeah, and there's that whole episode where he's like underwater and like
Yeah.
experiencing this completely different world.
Yeah, he has to wear like an air bubble to get talk to anybody.
And I think that's what's so fun, is that it's like they have this very whimsical way of portraying this world, but it's all so real in terms of its emotional honesty.
Yeah.
And the humor also like is often very, very goofy and just silly. So, and it kind of it makes you not prepared for the honesty that's coming.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like BoJack has this very just interesting way weaving between like goofy shenanigans with Todd, but like when like BoJack and Diane are having these like really very real moments, and be able to bounce back and forth between those two kind of things like almost seamlessly is really impressive.
Oh yeah, definitely. In this last season, there's like the whole side story where Todd builds like a sex robot that's just covered in dildos and can only say gross like pickup lines, and it keeps cutting to that between these like really serious discussions, and it's interesting that it works, and I think part of it's just like the shock of going from one thing to the other. Both ways it works.
Yeah. And I mean, I think part of the reason this works so well is because of all the actors they've got for all the characters. Because I mean, you're working with Will Arnett, you got Allison Brie. I was really surprised when I learned that Todd was Aaron Paul from Breaking Bad, because I've never watched Breaking Bad, but I've only like seen bits and pieces of it, and that's all I'm familiar with him. So to see him be a total dork on BoJack is just kind of interesting.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. It's great. Like it seems like all the actors take it like pretty darn seriously, and they're completely in it. Like I always forget that it's Aaron Paul as Todd, because he does such a good job as it, and he just plays such a great slacker character. Yeah, and
like I feel like Will Arnett has such a kind of voice where most characters, I can tell it's him, but with BoJack, it's like, I don't know, it's still his Will Arnett voice, but like I don't think about that when BoJack's on screen. It's like I just hear BoJack, and like I know Allison Brie from Community, but I had to actually look up in this last season because I forgot that was her.
Oh yeah, same.
It's like, she sounds familiar. Why does she sound familiar? It's like, oh shit, yeah, that's Allison Brie. Duh. But yeah, I mean, there's a number of characters that, I mean, no matter what you've got going on in your own life, you can attach yourself to. I know I was talking to some people on Discord earlier, and they're, going through is like, I like BoJack, or I like Princess Carolyn, or for a myriad of different reasons. Would you say you relate or find yourself drawn to any particular character in general?
I think they all portray a different type of like depression or anxiety in their own really special way. I mean, like I kind of get BoJack a lot, but I mean, Diane and Mr. Peanut Butter are also really interesting.
Yeah.
I think I'm kind of drawn to Mr. Peanut Butter in the sense that when I first saw the show, it seemed like he was going to be this easy, the perfect guy that I was kind of afraid that they'd have. But as the series goes on, they really explore the negativity in being constantly positive. And again, he seems to have his own problems, and his life never seems to go the way he wants because he's constantly positive.
Like the whole episode in this new season where he's trying to be bad.
Yeah.
He's trying to be a tough guy, but he just keeps fixing everyone's problems.
Yeah, exactly. He can't have exactly what he wants.
Yeah. And I feel like that's a theme that kind of goes throughout the show, is like everything's a little bittersweet. Like even if you end up getting what you want, it kind of comes with a price, I guess. It's like everything and anything can come back to bite you in the ass just a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I kind of like I kind of forgot what was going on between last season and this, so it was weird getting into this new season and just kind of reacquainting myself with the world. Like I completely forgot that Diane and Mr. Peanut Butter were in the process of getting divorced, and that finally kind of comes to a resolution, and a very interesting episode with Diane where she goes to Vietnam.
That episode is fantastic, really.
Yeah, and I honestly I don't know about you, but I was kind of confused because the first episode kind of it just drops you into what the new season storyline is, and it takes till like the next episode for it to like start cycling back through everything that led up to that. Like it kind of like the time frame is a little off from when Diane's telling her story.
Yeah, it's kind of an unusual order to things. I think I need to watch the season a second time to really get a grip on how it was organized.
Yeah, that's what I definitely I definitely feel like once I finish this new season, I probably should just go back and rewatch the entire series start to end.
Yeah,
or at least where it's ended at the moment.
That's definitely what I'm planning to do soon.
Yeah, because I imagine this show is going to go on for a while, because I think it's one of Netflix's biggest shows, and I saw a news article the other day that they're going to start showing it on Comedy Central now, which I've never heard of a Netflix show getting syndicated onto regular television. So
yeah, that is interesting. I wonder if that's going to be something that we start seeing more frequently.
Mm-hmm.
And how that's going to affect Netflix shows and how they produce them. But we'll
yeah,
see.
I mean, I'm not totally against that idea. If only it means that like BoJack is going to get a wider audience rather than just people who watch Netflix.
Yeah, definitely.
But on the other hand, like, I don't know how I'm going to feel about them having to either edit or censor bleep a lot of things in BoJack.
Definitely.
Because, I mean, Netflix is doing really well in terms of adult animation because they don't really have to filter themselves. So I don't know if you've watched like F is for Family or Big Mouth.
Yeah, I've watched a little of F is for Family, and I've watched all of that there is of Big Mouth.
Mm-hmm. And so I think Netflix really knows which projects to pick up in terms of like adult animation. I think they've really been hitting it with their programming choices.
Yeah, and they get to talk about stuff that you wouldn't be able to talk about on regular television. I think that's why BoJack is so strong, because they don't have to pull any punches.
And usually they don't. Like, I remember, wasn't there like an episode like a couple seasons ago where like BoJack was like ready to just drive off and kill himself?
I can't imagine that only happened once. It seems like that happened a few times.
Yeah. And he sees like wild horses running out and just out in the desert, and that's what keeps him from doing it. And I mean, there's an entire storyline where he goes back to meet an old love of his that he was obsessing over, and she's married with children, and how you deal with that.
And that episode gets pretty dark. I mean, he's flirting with her daughter, who's 17.
Yeah.
I was reading an article recently, I wish I could remember what it was, that talked about how the show really focuses on if really horrible people can be better. And it really goes, I think, as dark as it can get with that.
Yeah. I definitely think that was one of his lowest points, and like I said, I haven't finished the new season. You probably know the answer to this already, but that little incident with the teenage girl, I think is gonna come back to bite him, because they played it. So this person played it back on a tape recorder for Diane, and I'm not sure how that's gonna resolve itself yet. So I'll get to that eventually.
Yeah, it definitely does come back to bite him in some way, at least in a personal way, with his relationship with Diane.
Well, that's good.
And again, I think that what's kind of interesting is Diane's reaction to that, and how even though it's horrible and she hates him for it, it doesn't make her hate him enough to believe that he can't be a better person.
Yeah, and honestly, it's been interesting over the last couple over these seasons to watch BoJack go from like this insufferable ass of a person to this newest season where he's on like basically a procedural cop show, and his character he's playing is more or less himself, but he kind of comes to realize that and like has like a panic attack, saying he's like he doesn't want to be that person anymore. So he's realizing that who he used to be was a really awful person and is trying to actively be better. And I mean, I feel like a lot of people can relate to that, where, you know, I'm sure all of us in our lives have realized that at one point or another, we were kind of not the person we wanted to be. And like realize that you need to take steps to make changes to, you know, be a better person to everyone around you.
Yeah, and then also it's interesting that he sort of feels trapped in that person by being forced to play that person every day for his job. And I think that's really something everyone feels as well. Like, can you just cut that part of you off immediately, or is it just like something you're forced into every day a little bit?
Yeah. You know? And it was funny how Princess Carolyn, who's his manager, kind of convinces him to keep doing it because he was like just threatening to walk off the show, and she's like, just pretend. He's like, you're an actor. You pretend to be this person who's kind of like a shitty version of you, but as soon as you're done, you take that off and you're the new you. You're regular. You are you when you're not acting, and I mean, it's just interesting. I think their relationship is just very interesting. And I feel like you get a lot of Carolyn's backstory this season, and kind of like how her personality kind of came to be.
Yeah, definitely. I think she's one of my favorite characters. She's just a lot deeper than you expect her to be, because she seems like she's going to be like a one-off joke, like most of them in the first season seem to be, but she's got this fully fledged backstory that they bring into this new one. And especially I think her relationship in season 4 was really interesting. I'm trying to remember a whole lot of season 4. It's been so long, but
yeah.
I remember her boyfriend,
the mouse guy.
Yeah, the mouse guy. He was really, I mean, it seemed like they had a healthy relationship for a long time. And then I think one of my favorite parts about season 5 is how they show people who are in past relationships like getting along with each other, and even though it's not perfect, that they continue to be friends. And I like a positive outlook on relationships.
Yeah, because that can be difficult. Being able to be friends with, you know, someone you've been intimate with, or, you know, like that in that regard. But yeah, I mean, half the cast has slept with each other at some point, and the fact that they can all be, you know, friends in the end, you know, is still kind of impressive.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty strong message to be putting out there, that it's so easy to just cut people out of your life, but like you're usually in a relationship because you want to be with someone or you like them in some way. So I think it's good to show people continuing to be parts of each other's lives.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, and with getting back to Carolyn a little bit. I was kind of in that camp of thinking she was kind of a one-note character. She definitely wasn't like high up on my list of characters I was interested or too invested in, but I kind of changed with this season when they had her episode about her backstory. I kind of got a new understanding for her character, and I thought that was a much needed thing for her. So yeah. I really appreciated that they finally got around to that.
Yeah, definitely. So last season also was the death of BoJack's mother, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And that's like generally critically like the best, what people think is the best of the series, and they come back to that in the season, in the episode you're gonna watch next, I think.
And
yeah,
because just watching over the last few seasons, just watching BoJack's relationship with his mom, which is kind of heartbreaking at some points, because it's like she's very resentful towards him, gives him shit all the time, but in the end, like, she's like this ends up with this Alzheimer's patient and doesn't even know where she is half the time. And just seeing how he treats her in the end is just kind of very sad.
Yeah, it's really, really hard to watch sometimes. But I mean, like, she's been this antagonist through the whole series, and then I think it's Time Zero is like the episode, and they explore Alzheimer's, and they also explore her history, and she just has this miserable life, and you sort of start to empathize with her, like you do everyone on the show, regardless of how shitty they are. You start to see things from her point of view a little.
Yeah, and I think that's something the show does really well, is that, yeah, everyone is kind of a shitty person, but they always give you a reason for why they are that way. Like, what in their life brought them to the point that they are now, and why they're such shitty, broken people. And, like, everyone's got their own unique reason as to why, what broke them earlier in life, and, watching them try to rebuild themselves is just, it's kind of painful sometimes, but, kind of reassuring when, they start to get to a better place.
Yeah, and I think it's hopeful in general that it never puts the shittiness on the characters like they're born with it, like that's who they have to be forever. It always feels like it's something that they can overcome.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why we stick with them, even though most of them are really miserable, especially BoJack himself. Like, he's gotten better in some ways, but I feel like he's also just as shitty as he was at the beginning a lot of the time.
Yeah.
If not more shitty.
It's one of those 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of deals.
Yeah, definitely.
But I mean, to me, it's still kind of impressive that after 5 seasons, they're still finding ways for, like, fresh ways for these characters to keep evolving. Because especially for an animated series, like, I feel like around season 3 or 4 is kind of when you start hitting your limit with, like, storylines you can do with your characters. But I don't think BoJack's ever had a lull. I don't think so. In its storytelling.
Yeah, it never has a lull, and nothing ever is resolved in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the director said something about that, how he never saw there being an ending to this, because it's just part of life, and life, you don't get endings. Stuff just keeps changing, and the flow just changes, but there's still stuff to overcome.
And it's kind of funny that in this regard, I'm fine with that. Like, I'm fine with just saying that's life. Life doesn't have a beginning or an ending. It's just a series of things. Whereas when we reviewed the Adventure Time finale the other week, we complained that how they summed up the ending with, like, well, the way the show ends is like, there is no ending. They all went on, lived their lives, and life went on. And I just thought that was such a horrible ending.
Yeah, I know. Like, and for some reason, at the end of every season of BoJack, I'm like, if this was it, I'd be happy. Like, even though nothing is solved or resolved, I'm like, yep, that sounds about right.
Yeah, you're totally right. Like, if BoJack just decided, hey, we're done, and I'm like, all right, we've seen these people live their lives. You know, maybe we didn't get a satisfying conclusion to everything, but you know, you saw them grow and decrease and break and rebuild themselves on several occasions. So I mean, you know, I'm glad we keep getting more of this, and I'm like I said, I'm pretty sure they're going to keep making this until it stops being popular. But I'm pretty sure this is one of Netflix's most profitable shows. So
yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And the other thing I wanted to talk about real quick is how much as a Netflix show, I think you can get away with breaking the rules of animation and doing some really weird avant-garde stuff. And in that episode 6 eulogy episode, BoJack just gives a eulogy for his mother at his funeral, or at her funeral, and it's just a shot of him in the front of this funeral home with the casket next to him for 25 minutes. It never breaks from that.
Jesus.
And like, if you try to do that on TV, I can't believe anyone would let you.
Oh no!
Yeah,
there's no way an executive on network television will let you do that.
And then it's all in support of a visual gag at the end of the episode. It's a 25-minute visual gag that doesn't pay off until the end.
That's ballsy shit right there.
It really is, and it's also like 25 minutes of like some of the most powerful emotional stuff, like dealing with the death of an abusive parent and trying to forgive them and working through that emotion on your own, and also not forgiving them, which I think is a really difficult thing to talk about.
Yeah.
And then they punctuate it with like, you know, one of the dumbest visual gags you can possibly do.
And like I said, I haven't gotten to that episode, so I'm very much looking forward to that. But I think doing that 5 seasons in, they've earned enough credit with their audience that they can do that and no one's bothered by it. Like, if they'd done that in season 1 or 2, it probably would have been like, why would they bother doing an entire episode like that? But like, you're 5 seasons in, if you're not invested by now, you're not going to be. But everyone who is invested knows that this means something. It's leading to something.
Yeah. And that's one of those episodes that I think BoJack has like at least one of every season where like 5 minutes in, there's this realization that like, oh my God, they're really going to do this for 25 minutes. And it really, I mean, it just completely sucks you in. If you're half watching the show up to that point, you'll drop everything to watch the show.
Yeah. Man, BoJack is just a very just interesting is the only word I can really say. It's an interesting kind of show that kind of came out of nowhere when it came out, and just the weird way it's caught on with people. Like I said earlier, I think it's just due to its very honest portrayal of like depression and relationships and just living life and trying to find purpose in life. You know, there's so many characters going through so many different things that, I mean, you're bound to latch onto at least one of them, if not multiple.
Yeah, because it's not, I mean, it's a very multi-dimensional representation of sadness and depression, and every character represents a different side of that. And I think there's always something for someone. And it's not like very scary and hard to talk about experiences. Like tons of them all wrapped up in one little show. It's like most shows you watch where they're like, oh, they talk about something so difficult that nobody else is willing to talk about. And BoJack does all of those things. Yeah. 10 or 20 different things in one show.
Yeah. For something that any other show would make a special episode about, BoJack spends the entire series doing.
Yeah, exactly. every character is broken in their own special way, and they all have something to relate to that's a lot of people aren't willing to talk about, and I think that's what I love about the show so much.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So Matt, is there anything else you want to say about Mr. Horseman before we wrap this up today?
I don't know. I will say that I like the ace representation. I think that's another thing that I love about the show is that Todd gets to be fully ace in front of everyone.
Yeah, they got really heavy with it this season, I feel. And with a lot of other kind of social movements. I'll be honest, I'm in full support with like people doing whatever they want to. But I am the kind of person who has trouble keeping up with these terminologies and stuff. So BoJack kind of slowly explaining what goes into being an asexual and what being aromantic is and all that kind of stuff. It was good for me from a learning perspective because it's like it kind of eases you into these concepts without being too like hitting you over the head with it.
Yeah, I think it's good for people who are ace or whoever they're talking about in that particular episode to see the representation of themselves, and also it's good for people who don't understand it because it really is a very grounded and very polite way of describing a lot of those things.
Mm-hmm. It's very respectful, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
I will say in this new season, as far as I've seen, it might have been the last one I watched, is the episode where BoJack is basically trying very hard to be an outspoken feminist against this other actor who keeps making slurs against various different groups.
The Mel Gibson.
The Mel Gibson stand-in.
Yeah.
I just kind of felt that episode was a little heavy-handed and a little too on the point with a current event. Because I felt like BoJack has been able to kind of touch on social topics, but kind of keep it vague enough that it works within its own context without having to, reference a specific event in real world. But I felt like the whole like mentioning of the Me Too movement and the, all of the outspoken feminism that BoJack's trying to do, I felt was a little too on the nose. I mean, I don't think it was out of place with the tone of the show, but I just felt like that storyline in particular was just a little too specific, I guess.
It's kind of odd to me, I guess, that it was only one episode in a way, because like it seems like such a permeating thing through A, Hollywood, and B, the kind of thing that BoJack would talk about and be consistent about throughout the whole series.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of surprised that they don't go into like sexual harassment and stuff in the industry more frequently.
Yeah. Though I feel like that topic's really only become prevalent maybe in the last year. And I don't know what kind of production cycle that BoJack's working on, so that maybe that's something that'll pop up next season, and I think would be kind of interesting to see their perspective on,
definitely
the speaking out about the sexual harassment in the entertainment industry. I feel like would be something interesting for them to tackle.
Yeah, I would be surprised if they don't go into it more later, but we'll see. I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, BoJack always kind of leaves you wondering what's going to happen next, and we're 5 seasons in, and I'm still as invested as I was after 1 season. So
yeah, definitely, I'm really excited for more, and it's just one of those things where you wait all year for a new season, you watch it one day, and
I know
you have to wait another year.
I swear we've had this conversation on the show before about like the model Netflix has. It's like a double-edged sword. Like on the one hand, I love being able to sit down and watch an entire season of a show, but I hate having to wait another year for the next one.
It's the worst. It's hard to say. I mean, it does have its ups and downs. Like, I do like being able to watch it all at once, because I have trouble keeping up with things if they come out on a weekly basis.
Oh, yeah.
I'll usually
Definitely.
wait till like a whole season's out anyway, and then just binge it. But
yeah.
But then you wait, and then you forget everything that happened, and
that's exactly what happened when I was watching this season. Is like, what happened last? Oh, right, that's what happened, and this character was going through this and all that stuff. So I had to give myself a little bit of a refresher course before, like, every little bit going through this season. But yeah, Netflix, that's just kind of their MO. Unless it's Voltron, where they release a new season every 6 months.
yeah,
you know.
For sure.
But yeah, if you haven't watched BoJack, now's as good a time as any to get in on it. You got 5 seasons worth of show to keep you busy. So, I will say there's a lot of heavy concepts in this show that, you know, some people might be a little sensitive to, but I think the honesty in which it handles a lot of those things, I think most people could appreciate.
And I think if you're just getting into it now, I always say that it kind of starts a little slow. It starts a little light, and by the end of the first season, it starts really getting into the stuff that makes it good.
Yeah, that's for sure. So yeah, Matt, did you have anything else you want to talk about tonight?
I think I've said all I can say about the Sad Horse Show.
Okay. Well, thanks for being on here tonight, Matt.
Yeah,
I'm glad that we finally got to talk about BoJack on the podcast here, because it's been a very dear show to me for the last couple of years. So it was good to finally get to talk about it.
Yeah, I'm glad you had me to talk about it, because
yeah, for sure, man.
It's definitely one of my fave shows and worth talking about.
Yeah. But for you, the listeners, thank you for checking us out this week, and make sure you tell us in the comments, you know, what you thought of this most recent season, or, you know, just your general thoughts on BoJack. I don't know what we're doing next week. I'll have to check the schedule, but I guess until then, we'll just catch you all later.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Ink and Paint Club podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the channel so you can catch a new episode every week. Also be sure to follow us on our Facebook and Twitter so you can keep up with the show. Links are in the description. We'll see you next week.